Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Bear, Season 3, Episode 7. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, we have that situation where Carmi was thinking about a time he was with Claire. Obviously, last season, we didn't get a lot of their dating situation. We got like very slice of life elements to it, and we're getting a little bit more of it this season, but you can tell like it's all hitting Carmi. Like I said, it still feels like it's that line from was it episode 5, the whole line of it hasn't really kicked in yet. You kind of you haven't felt the hurt yet. And it's interesting how they parallel it too, because like Carmi's kind of going through it, and so is Richie. Because like at one point, like you see Richie turn, and the camera shows Carmi kind of staring off in the distance. But I don't know if that's Richie seeing him do that, or is that just like the audience, like the camera view is seeing him do it. But it's just they're both. I think it's a combination, just everything last season, all that's been compounding on top of Chef Terry's restaurant ever closing, and it's just like once again. I'm assuming the next episode or two we would get the funeral, because they were supposed to have like one more week of service and then it's the funeral. So I don't know. We'll see. It seems too big for that not to be an episode in its own right, or at least a good chunk of an episode. So we have Carmi at a Al-Anon meeting, and it's a really interesting conversation. The first dude was talking about like he's happy that a partner, I think it's someone, I don't know if it was a partner, it was someone in his life that's an alcoholic, that he's glad they're sober, but it comes with like this double-edged sword of they did a lot of effed up stuff while they were high, or while they were not sober, and now that they are sober, it's like I'm proud of them, that's great and everything, but now it also feels like it's a free pass because I'm supposed to just let that slide. Like it's like not fair that I have to be the one. You're the one that caused all this damage, yet I'm the one that kind of has to deal with the leftover baggage, because I have to be considerate of you weren't in the right mind, you weren't like you were not sober, you were drunk or whatever the case may be. So it's like I kind of have to hold on to that, and that's not fair. And it's like I've never really heard that talked about, that reverse of it. It's like, yeah, you want to be proud of someone, but there is some resentment, like understandable resentment. Like it might seem illogical, but it also makes a lot of sense of like, right, I have to be a bigger person and just kind of hold like that. You kind of get a free pass. You're like, you get to just brush that away of like, I wasn't sober, I was drunk or whatever. So you get to kind of put that, you recognize it was you who did it, but also you get to put that on a different version of yourself. Whereas the person who has to like, who got both sides of it kind of has to go, yeah, I just have to take that on the chin. And it's like, it is unfair. I thought that was interesting. And then there's also tying into that, it's the whole conversation about saying sorry. I think that person, I don't know if the woman who was talking about this was the main person leading this Al-Anon meeting, but it was so interesting what she was talking about. Like, she was saying, like, sorry is such a thing, like, you have to say it quickly or it's going to stick to you. That whole, like, lines of dialogue, it resonated with me so fucking much. I can't tell you, like, especially more recently in my life, like that. I've been thinking about it a lot. There's so much from The Bear that has been resonating with my life lately, which I don't think is a good thing in some ways. But it's just an interesting thing of like, there's just some stuff that I think when I watched a lot of the season the first time through, it might not have personally hit me on some regards, but like subsequent watches of like season 1 and 2, I'm like, that hits a little closer to home now. I think I have like a different perspective just because life, right? And so I just thought that was so interesting. Basically, like, once again, you don't say sorry. It just kind of sticks with you. It kind of gets, it like lumps onto your ribs, and then just eventually everything else piles on. And we see that with both Carmi and I think with Richie, where it's just like, it's all piling on. A lot of people, I think everyone's kind of dealing with it in their own way. I think your trio of Carmi, Richie, and Sid. I mean, Sid's thing isn't 100%. It's more Carmi than anything, but I think there's a little bit of Richie and a little bit of Sid in that capacity too. But it's like there's so much he wants to say, because he has not talked to Claire because he doesn't think he has the right to, but he also feels like I said what I said, and no matter how much I want to deny it, maybe there is some truth to it. So he can't bring himself to do it because he doesn't think he deserves any forgiveness. He's just, once again, he's trying to dump himself into work to kind of forget. Like he's not. And that was the whole conversation about, you don't want to kind of live with that, and the longer you like wait on those words of sorry, the less it's going to mean, and the harder it's going to be to ever say those words. And the more time Carmi is letting pass, it's just going to make that harder and harder and harder, and now it's making other stuff stick to him. Things have been compiling for a while, which is interesting too, because Carmi had talked about this because he was initially talking to Marcus about legacy, because he has this photo of all these big time chefs, and it's like, right, they talked about legacy, not necessarily the dish they made, but it's this beautiful thing of everything they learned and they take with them. Like, so all these chefs go their separate ways. They take everything they learn and they move on to the next spot. And it happens over and over again until like all like different restaurants are amalgamation. Let's use the Bear, for example. People with different experiences have made up the Bear to what it is right now. And so it's like they all carry a little bit of previous places they've been to and experiences that bring them to make the Bear this unique experience. And then eventually that sprouts off, people go their separate ways, and that story continues. Oh, and it repeats itself. I thought that was there's something beautiful about that legacy that as Marcus put it, he was like, oh, like a family tree. And Carmen's like, yeah. And it's like, it's kind of neat to think about that, like a legacy in that capacity, that a little bit of it's carried over, that soul of that one restaurant has been carried over and over and over and over again, and it's spread out into so many different branches. There's something beautiful about that. Because Sid didn't really talk too much about legacy in her capacity. She was just kind of like, right, I just want to make it through Wednesday. Carmen's conversation about legacy, obviously, you know, you're like, that makes a lot of sense. He's like, I want my legacy, the legacy to be something that was kind of less panicless, anxietyless, that I'm blanking on it now, because I was like, there was other elements to it that he was talking about that I'm like, yeah, that's such a Carmen response and perspective on it. I'm going to butcher it, but basically it's kind of this thing of he felt like not everything was ever going to be okay until he basically said, like, there's a lot I have to deal with, I have to make right, and until I do, I don't know if I'll ever really be. I'm butchering it because I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something along those lines of he needed to, like, there's a lot he has to kind of like apologize for and people to reach out to, and I think that includes Richie, and I think that's Claire, and just there's a lot that he's kind of been holding on to that's been bogging him down, and it's about trying to kind of unstick, you know, because this was after that Al-Anon meeting, so I think a lot of that, like, right, what's sticking to his ribs in a metaphorical sense, I think a lot of that, you know, there's a lot he has to kind of make right, and that, you know, he doesn't want to be part of his legacy. And Marcus talked about that it's like all that he kind of learned, that he was someone that was hardworking and was a good learner, that he was fun to be around, and like he wants those elements to be part of his legacy, which was dope. So I thought that was kind of an interesting conversation all around. Switching over to Sid, since she was a part of this conversation, she meets up with Adam, and Adam's like, he's kind of grateful about the Terry situation, because he's like, yeah, it was a wonderful spot, but the problem is, he's like, if it challenged me now that Terry, like her doing this, kind of benefited me, because now I'm willing to go out there and spread my wings, because if I didn't, I would have gotten comfortable. I would have never left ever. I would have just worked there for the rest of my life type of situation. So it gives him an opportunity. He wants to immediately jump into making his own spot, and he wants to not poach, but also kind of semi-poach Sid, which Sid didn't outwardly say no. She's like, no, I'm at the Bear, I'm good. But he was like, no, and he's being respectful. It's like, oh, I'm not trying to be on some poaching stuff. It's like, I want to talk to Carm, but I also wanted to talk to you about it. It'd be $80K a year. It's going to be starting, and then eventually this, and this. I want you to lead the team and teach everybody. It's like, well, what do you want me to do? He's like, whatever you want, which Sid's feeling that because she hasn't been able to do whatever she wants, because everything she wants to do, Carmi's uprooted it, because once again, Carmi's bad at communication, and he's so dealing with his own bullshit. He's not recognizing what he's doing to Sid, that he's so sidelining her, because once again, this is supposed to be a partnership, but it feels like a lot of Sid's identity in the restaurant has been going away. So later on, it's like, oh, like Nat's like, why don't you sign the agreement? It's like, well, how can I sign the agreement? Because it feels like so shallow to sign it, because I don't know what my place in this place is anymore. You know, because I am losing it. Like I want to, you know, she has her ambition, she has her goals, and then she's also thinking about like an interaction she's had with Carmi over the past 2 seasons of how shit has gone sideways and bad, and it's just, you know, that partnership has come with its tumultuous moments. It's good, but I think at a time when you're feeling a little lost, all you can do is think about the bad, which, you know, I totally understand that. So that's kind of a hard pill for her to kind of swallow. And especially at the end of the episode, she's suggesting some stuff and Carmi completely ignores her. Once again, it doesn't even register in his head what he's doing because he's so distracted with other stuff. And it's like, right, he's so, like I said, his head is so firmly in the sand and kind of up his own ass just because he's trying to, like, he's running away from issues. He's not properly dealing with stuff. He wasn't properly dealing with stuff last season either, but it's like it's been this compounding issue with him not dealing with stuff properly, and he can't see the pattern he constantly finds himself in, that he can't break it, you know. I really like the Nat stuff too, with how her interactions with both Richie and T when it comes to the whole parenting situation, because obviously she's worried about a lot. It's like, yeah, the place is already prepared for the baby and all that. And she, hears from Richie, it's like, okay, like when Tiff ended up, going into labor. He had talked about it like the day before he went on a trip with Mikey. He figured Tiff was kind of pissed about it, so he decided to stay home. He was like thinking about, some spicy food to induce labor, and it's like, whoa, the pizza again? He's like, no, fuck that pizza. We didn't do that again. But they went to a Thai place, and I love this line. We went to this Thai place that we loved, that correction, and at the place, like or maybe when they got back at one point in time, she went into labor, like her water broke. He gathered up stuff. They went to the hospital, and it was actually kind of this chill, calm thing, and that was kind of interesting. But you also have this moment where like Nat's asking like, oh, what was the trip for Mikey? It's like, we had to drop something off for Jimmy, and in that moment it's just kind of like you just see like Richie trying to fight back the tears. It's like he's trying not to think about his best friend, and it's just kind of like probably nice to think about him, because there was a line from Carmen where he was talking to Claire last season where he was like, no, I like to think about Mikey, but it's like I don't know if it's the same way for Richie too, because it's like so much time has passed and you're less and less of Mikey's here in the restaurant now. It kind of plays into the notion of legacy, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. But also you got T's perspective on things, where she was like, yeah, I was kind of concerned about everything. Were we going to have enough money? Like, was I going to be a good mother? It's like, yeah, I was in labor with like a Louis forever, but she's also saying like, right, it might seem like forever, but that time could also fly by fast. Her son's literally a teenager, so understandable why she'd have that perspective. And it's like, yeah, and after everything was all said and done, it's like, oh, everything. I think, what was the line that? What was it that Nat said? I think it was something along the lines of, she was like, oh, everything changed, right? And then T was like, no, that is like, I think there's something nerve-wracking, but also something comforting about like, yeah, like you think like, okay, once the baby's out, like everything's going to be different. It's like, no, everything pretty much stayed the same for better and for worse, in that capacity. So I think there's something nice to that. I also love the conversation about the seafoods, where it's like, oh, multiple people reminding Nat we need seafoods, and it's like, oh, Nat, we need seafoods, and they're like, whoa, how'd you know? She's like, I just see it. They're like, whoa, Neil's like, do you have superpowers or something? It's like, no, and I love Ted being like, you're in on it, right? You're on the hunt, and she's like, Ted, you can go fuck or something like Ted, and he's like, yeah, maybe I will, and everyone would be like, oh, do you want us to go with you to go to get the seafoods there? She's like, no, you guys are needed here, and they're like, yeah, that's exactly that. She's 100% right. We are needed. Yeah, she's right. So Neil and Ted. I love that we're just getting more and more Ted this season. And it just, as the show goes on, we're just going to get more and more facts just popping up all over the place. Because we got Uncle Gary this episode. Because they had talked about it previously, that their dad had haunted Uncle Gary for such a long time. And they were like, yeah, what was that kind of like? And Uncle Gary told like this soliloquy about like, basically he told him anecdote about touching the third rail and basically waking up in Valhalla. And you're almost like, it took me a second to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But I was like, okay, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, he's like, that's what it was like being haunted. And even Ted and Fack are like, Ted and Neil like, what the fuck is he talking about? And even Gary's just like, you did that little line of dialogue as he's leaving. He's like, also, your dad is still a prick. Because they had that conversation too with like, was it Chi-Chi and Chucky about the whole situation of being haunted. And I love that Chucky was like, yeah, I think he broke my arm. I was like, whoa, he broke your arm? It's like, no, I was just at Richie's like grandmother's house. And then all of a sudden my arm like broke, like a double break or bent or something like that. It's like, yeah, and I think he was responsible for it. And there's another dude there being like, wait, he's not dead. He's still alive. They're like, what? He's like, Sammy, he's still alive. He's like, no, the haunt's not like that. Because it's like, that's why I'm wondering, like, why is Ted worried about the haunt? It's like, he got haunted for 15 minutes, but the problem, like, has he not been haunted in a long time? Or was this his first time getting haunted? Because I'm like, why did this wreck you? Like, I get it in the episode, but why are you still worried about being haunted? It's supposed to be all kosher now that you used the password, right? Or is that bullshit aspect about because like Chucky had said, like, right, he got the haunting for him. I think Sammy had haunted him in 5th grade and went on the way up to 8th grade. It's like, this shit is insane. Also, it's like, so I guess even if you use the password, that's not a guarantee. It just depends on the hauntee. The haunter, whether or not they want to forgive the hauntee or not. They, I guess, set the terms of, okay, now my haunting's over. So I guess that's why Ted's still on edge. That has to come back full circle of like, nah, the haunting's gonna come out of nowhere and Ted's gonna lose his shit. It has to before we end this season. Like, it's gonna be like a big haunt, and then Sammy's gonna be like, now we're good, now we're okay. Because like I said, the whole point of the password is to make it so that the haunt stops, but does it not? Like I said, is it just up to the discretion of the haunter? I have no idea. But speaking of Chi-Chi and Chucky, they show up and they're helping out Ibra. And I love that whole conversation about like, all right, we're going to make things a little smoother. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, the mayonnaise thing. It's like, right, handed this guy a sandwich, gave him the mayonnaise, told him he could take it home and fix this. And then Chi-Chi's like, Chris is like, yo, that was your fault. He's like, because of that, I would basically throw the mayonnaise at a guy, go out there, pick it up, and throw it so it bounces off your head too. It's like, you fucked us with the whole mayonnaise thing. You started that shit. He's like, yes, it's my fault. I fucked the mayonnaise thing. So I thought that was kind of neat. Also, I love that it's like, they were doing their thing and T was like, whoa, wait. And then she cuts the tape. It's like, I just, once again, the little details about like just those things. And also Ibra feeling good. It's like, yeah, the system's working. It feels, he's kind of in the ebb and flow. Because it's not the first time really seeing him smile at work like this. Since like taking over this, in this capacity, like us seeing him in the thick of things smiling, it's kind of dope. And Tina even hooks him up with the clipboard to keep things straight. And I was like, that's so beautiful. That's so good. And even her walking by, touching the napkin dispenser, which, once again, tying all the napkin stuff related to tea together like that was pretty dope. So, Nat, basically, I think her water breaks at the end of the episode, which I was kind of like, yeah, that figures as much. I was like, she was straining herself, so Pete's not back yet either. He's supposed to get back like, well, she said she was going to get off tonight at 10. She should be home, so I think he's like on his way back home from his meeting or whatever, so. But yeah, I figured as much. That's like, probably should have let someone else go with you, but of course she wasn't going to. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to talk about the Gary stuff, which was really interesting. Because they bring up the baseball thing, which someone has to correct me. I don't think they've talked about that since like season 1. Because Gary like offhandedly mentions it when he was talking to Marcus when he thought Marcus was like homeless, but it's like, oh no, I'm staying at the beef. It's like, oh, so you're not homeless, you're just crazy. And then Marcus is like, whoa, wait a minute, what you just say? Like you play for like the Cubs or something like that? And we find out like it was a pretty big deal. Even Ted's like, yo, I knew about you, because he's like, yeah, I used to put money down. I mean, we also know like they're connected to baseball in the capacity because like the baseball card thing they were trying to set up with both Jimmy as well as Stevie a couple years ago, like that whole thing. So it makes sense that he'd be, but it's fascinating to know about Gary's history, and that kind of plays in the legacy as well. Because he talked about his history, like he played like 150 game seasons, but he's always been like a very scrawny, like he says, like I've always been like kind of a frail dude, so he wanted to bulk up. A guy hooked him up with something saying like, yeah, this will help, and basically he said like, yeah, I won't come up on any test. Took the piss test, and he got booted. It's like, dude, he's like, I took it twice. In fact, it didn't even make me better at the game or anything. It just kind of like, I don't even think it did anything. So it was legitimately all for nothing. But Gary does say, like, he found this place and he is where he is now. So there is that silver lining of, it's kind of like, maybe it was meant to be, And it was just kind of this thing, you see the smile on Gary's face when it was all said. And I think talking to Ted about it meant something. It was kind of nice to know, like, yeah, he kind of has like a baseball legacy that he kind of carried. Very much like I said, that legacy conversation, it kind of found its way here. And so I think that was kind of nice, it's just kind of like, right, that was one part of my life and I kind of miss it, it's a thing of what could have been, who I could have been, but it's like I like who I am now, and I'm kind of on a different path. But it fits so nicely with like Gary's always he never gets the main limelight, but you see him from time to time, and Gary's always had the very laissez-faire, like pretty chill, relaxed vibe to him. So I thought that was just kind of a nice little like moment with Gary like that to get just a little bit more about him in that regard. Like I said, especially the baseball thing. Someone has to let me know in the comments, because I feel like that one episode is the only time they've expressly talked about it. Maybe there's been some background like dialogue things I've kind of talked about it, and I just don't remember off the top of my head. But like I said, the Marcus conversation is I distinctly remember that being like the first time it came up, I believe. Because Ted had said, like, oh, he was like a great, like, left outfielder, you know? So, yeah, I just thought that was just kind of a neat situation and discussion and everything, so. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. Like I said, the Richie not being on his A game, him being a little lost. Because I think that was also a part of Gary's whole situation too, feeling purposeless, which is something that obviously Richie felt before, but he's kind of feeling it now because he feels like, yeah, like the front house, he's like, yeah, just it's supposed to be like the Super Bowl, as he learned from Ever. So it's like it's not feeling like that, and Nat was like, right, every day can't be perfect, but he's like, yeah, but it's just something missing, and you could tell it's taking its toll on him, and I think with everything, and just I think maybe because him and Carm are in a good place, it's really like it's being reflected in the restaurant and everything too. So, like, it's not a smooth operation. It's just kind of like, especially everything with Sid too. It's just there's so many moving pieces to this. I'm so interested to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.